We live in a world that celebrates self-sacrifice, working endless hours, saying yes to everyone and confusing burnout with success. But what if loving yourself more was the key to lasting strength, not selfishness? Modern society tells you to constantly prove your worth through relationships, achievements, and validation from strangers online. But the harder you chase it, the emptier you feel. What if the truth is you've been looking in the wrong place? People will call you arrogant if you set boundaries, cold if you walk away from toxic relationships, and selfish if you put your well-being first. But maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what true self-love requires. Welcome to Stoicraft, the place where ancient Stoic wisdom meets modern challenges. Here, we break down timeless lessons from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, and show you how to use them to reclaim your peace, build inner strength, and live on your own terms. When was the last time you looked into the mirror and truly respected the person staring back at you? Not just the face, not just the style, but the choices, the habits, and the way you've been living. For many people, that answer is uncomfortable. They smile for others, they collect approval, they even find temporary joy in relationships or achievements, but deep down, they feel hollow. And that emptiness comes from one brutal truth. The most important relationship you'll ever have isn't with your partner, your friends, or even your family. It's with yourself. Before the compliments, before the likes and validation, before anyone tells you who you are, there's only you. If that foundation is broken, nothing you build on top of it will stand for long. You could land the perfect job, experience passionate romance, fill your life with material success, but if you don't love yourself, all of it feels fragile, fleeting, and easily threatened. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. Self-love isn't selfish, it's survival. It's the invisible contract that defines how you allow the world to treat you. If you refuse to respect yourself, others will learn to disrespect you. If you abandon yourself in the name of pleasing others, you'll constantly accept less than you deserve. Real self-love means learning to stand firm when the world tries to drain you, protecting your energy when everyone else wants a piece of it, and holding on to your worth even when those around you are blind to it. In this episode, you'll discover how to love yourself more than anyone else, not by closing yourself off, but by building resilience, calm, and unshakable strength. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself is the same moment you stop tolerating mediocrity from everyone else. 1. Building a loving relationship with yourself. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you felt proud of yourself? Not because you accomplished something, not because you earned recognition, but simply because of who you are. If you can't remember, you're not alone. Most people chase validation from the outside world while neglecting the most critical relationship in their life, the one with themselves. Here's the Stoic reality: you can never escape yourself. No matter where you run, what you achieve, or who you stand beside, you take yourself with you. And if that bond is broken, nothing else will feel secure. Self-love isn't luck, and it doesn't magically appear when things are going well. It's a discipline. It's a daily practice, built like any meaningful relationship with effort, consistency, and intention. Think about how you treat someone you genuinely care about. You listen. You show patience. You offer forgiveness when they fall short. You Don't throw their mistakes in their face every single day. Now be brutally honest. Do you treat yourself that way? Most people don't. Instead, they speak to themselves in ways they would never dare to speak to a loved one. They replay their failures again and again like a broken record. They label themselves harshly after every misstep. They demand perfection from themselves while extending endless grace to everyone else. If you truly want to build a loving relationship with yourself, it starts here. Change the way you talk to yourself. Your inner dialogue is either your prison or your liberation. And until you learn to speak to yourself with the same dignity and compassion you offer others, you'll never feel at peace within your own skin. Replace "I can't believe I did" that with "I'm learning and improving." Replace "I'm not good enough" with "I'm still becoming the person I want to be." This isn't just playing with words, it's rewiring the way you see yourself. Because your mind is always listening, always believing the words you feed it. And when your inner voice becomes your harshest critic, you create a prison out of your own thoughts. But when you learn to speak with patience and encouragement, you create a foundation where growth feels possible instead of impossible. Yet self-love runs deeper than just repeating positive phrases. Words matter, but actions seal the truth. Think about it. If a friend constantly broke their word, canceled plans, or failed to show up when you needed them, could you trust them? Of course not. And yet, so many of us betray ourselves in exactly this way. We say we'll start exercising tomorrow, then hit snooze. We promise we'll cut ties with someone toxic, then let them back in. We commit to finishing a project, then abandon it halfway. Each time we do this, our self-respect erodes a little. More not because of the mistake itself, but because we prove to ourselves that our own word carries no weight. Rebuilding that trust isn't about grand gestures. It starts with the smallest, most ordinary commitments. Waking up at the time you promised yourself. Finishing that one task instead of leaving it for tomorrow. Honoring a boundary even when it feels inconvenient. Every kept promise becomes a brick, and over time you build a structure of self-respect, strong enough to weather anything. Another overlooked but essential part of this relationship is spending intentional time alone. And I don't mean scrolling endlessly, drowning in noise, or numbing yourself with distractions. I mean actually being with yourself. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even intimidating, because when you're alone, there's nowhere to hide from your own thoughts. But here's the truth. You cannot love someone you don't truly know. And if you never slow down long enough to sit with yourself, to listen to yourself, to hear what your heart has been quietly asking for, then you'll always feel like a stranger in your own life. Go for a walk without headphones. Sit down for a meal alone without reaching for your phone. Let silence ask you the questions you've been avoiding. What do I really want? What do I need to change? What parts of me have I been ignoring? That's how self-knowledge grows. And without self-knowledge, love for yourself is shallow at best. And just like in any meaningful relationship, forgiveness is not optional. It's essential. You cannot claim to love yourself while punishing yourself endlessly for mistakes of the past. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending those mistakes were okay. It means finally deciding that they no longer get to own you. Every act of self-forgiveness frees up space once occupied by guilt, and in that space, growth takes root. Over time, these small actions, honoring your word, sitting with yourself, forgiving your past, begin to transform you. You start to feel a quiet strength rising. You move with purpose instead of apology. You stop chasing validation from people incapable of giving it. You stop accepting scraps of love because you already carry an abundance within yourself. And when that shift happens, something extraordinary unfolds. You walk with more clarity. You speak with more conviction. You no longer feel the urge to over-explain your worth because it radiates silently. That's when you realize this truth. A loving relationship with yourself isn't just nice to have, it's the foundation upon which every other relationship in your life is built. If you respect yourself, you'll demand respect. If you value yourself, you'll stop tolerating being treated like you're disposable. And if you truly love yourself, you'll never again beg for the kind of love you can already give yourself, freely and abundantly. 2. Why self-love is the foundation of true happiness. Here's a bold claim. Every single moment of happiness you've ever felt, every burst of joy, every deep sigh of relief, every peaceful breath has been filtered through the way you see yourself. Two people can experience the exact same circumstances, but their inner worlds will decide whether they feel fulfilled or empty. Yet, one person feels deeply content while another feels chronically unfulfilled. What makes the difference? It isn't luck, it isn't privilege, it isn't even circumstance. It's self-love. Without it, happiness is fragile, always temporary, always dependent on someone else's approval or something else's presence. And the moment those external things shift, your sense of worth crumbles with them. We're conditioned to believe that happiness is a checklist. Get the promotion, find the perfect partner, buy the dream home, secure the financial success. Then and only then you'll finally feel complete. And yes, these milestones can bring excitement. They can even give you bursts of joy. But if you don't already love yourself, those moments will never be enough. They fade as quickly as they come, leaving you hungry for the next fix. That's why so many people achieve everything they thought they wanted and still whisper, late at night, "Why don't I feel happy?" Because happiness built only on externals is like building a mansion on sand. No matter how beautiful, no matter how impressive, the moment the ground shifts, and life always shifts, the entire structure collapses. Self-love, on the other hand, is solid ground. It is the bedrock that makes happiness steady, lasting, and real. When you genuinely value yourself, you stop waiting for permission to feel good about your own life. You stop begging for validation before allowing yourself to smile. It's like discovering an inner light switch, and once you turn it on, no one else can ever switch it off. And here's the part most people avoid. Building self-love requires unlearning years of conditioning. Since childhood, many of us were taught that our worth depended on performance, appearance, or how much we could please others. We were rewarded for fitting in, for being good, for meeting someone else's standard. Slowly, this created a dangerous pattern we outsourced: our happiness. We forgot that the power to feel whole has always been ours to give, not theirs to grant. True happiness begins the moment you reclaim that power. It's waking up and deciding, I don't need this day to go perfectly for me to feel good about myself. It's being able to sit alone without reaching for distraction and still feel whole. It's being able to receive love from others without depending on it for survival. That's not arrogance, it's freedom. Self-love makes you resilient. It allows you to enjoy the highs without clinging to them and to endure the lows without shattering. It creates an inner calm, a grounded peace that nothing outside of you can take away. And when you build your happiness on this foundation, every other part of life improves. Your relationships transform because you're no longer entering them from a place of desperation. You no longer need someone to complete you. You're already whole. That makes your love purer, stronger, freer. Your work becomes more fulfilling because you're not chasing recognition. You're doing it because it aligns with your values. Even your downtime feels richer because you're not running away from yourself. You're actually enjoying being yourself. The great mistake most people make is believing they can skip the hard work of self-love and go straight to happiness. But that's like planting flowers in poisoned soil. They may bloom for a moment, but they'll wither quickly. Self-love is the soil, the rich, nourishing ground where real happiness grows. Without it, nothing lasting survives. With it, everything flourishes. It's what makes joy sustainable. Without self-love, you're always at the mercy of circumstances. One bad day, one harsh comment, one broken plan, and your peace shatters. But with it, you become unshakable. Perhaps the most beautiful part is this: self-love is not some distant goal reserved for a lucky few. It's something you can begin building today, right now, in small and deliberate ways. By speaking kindly to yourself, by honoring your needs without guilt, by setting boundaries that protect your energy. Every single time you do these things, you strengthen the foundation. Happiness stops being a prize you chase and instead becomes the ground you walk on. 3. Setting boundaries without feeling guilty. Here's the question: why is it that the moment we try to protect our time, our energy, or our peace, we feel guilty? Why do so many of us say yes when every part of us is silently screaming no? The answer is simple but deeply uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to believe that putting ourselves first is selfish, and so we sacrifice our well-being for the comfort of others. We give up sleep, peace, energy, and even our dreams, thinking it makes us good people. But here's the truth: it doesn't make you good. It makes you exhausted. It makes you resentful. It makes you disconnected from yourself. And over time, that disconnection is what quietly destroys your spirit. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. And you are the one with the right to open and close them based on what is healthy for you. Without boundaries, life becomes chaotic. People start expecting more than you can realistically give, and you start handing out more than you can afford to lose. Eventually, you lose track of your own needs. You become so used to meeting everyone else's expectations that you forget you have your own. And here's the cruel paradox: the more you give without boundaries, the less people actually value what you give. Think about it: the friend who's always available at any hour, the coworker who never says no, the family member who sacrifices their own plans every time. These people are rarely respected more for their constant availability. More often, they're taken for granted. Boundaries don't push people away. They teach people how to treat you, and the guilt you feel when setting a boundary, it isn't proof that you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're breaking an old pattern. That uncomfortable feeling is simply your mind adjusting to a new way of living. You've been programmed for years to believe that your worth comes from how much you give away. So when you start protecting yourself, it feels unnatural. But in reality, you're not taking something from others, you're giving them something far more valuable, the best version of you. Not the drained, resentful version, the grounded, energized, fully alive version. Setting boundaries also means accepting this hard truth. You will disappoint people, and that's okay. You cannot live a life of self-respect and please everyone at the same time. If someone's love or respect for you depends on your willingness to overextend yourself, then it isn't love or respect, it's dependence and control. A person who truly cares about you will not punish you for having limits. They will respect them, even if it challenges them. Because at the end of the day, setting boundaries isn't about pushing others away. It's about finally choosing yourself. Boundaries don't just protect your time, they protect your identity. Without them, you'll end up saying yes to so many things you don't actually want that one day. You'll look around and realize you're living a life that doesn't even feel like yours. And here's the painful truth. When you lose touch with who you are, self-love becomes impossible. Because how can you love a version of yourself that constantly betrays its own needs just to keep everyone else comfortable? Practical boundaries don't have to be dramatic. They can be as simple as not answering calls after a certain hour, saying no to events that drain you instead of energizing you, refusing to engage in toxic conversations that go nowhere, or unapologetically taking time for yourself even when others don't understand it. These small, consistent acts communicate one message loud and clear: I matter too. The key word here is consistency. A boundary you set but constantly break isn't really a boundary, it's a polite suggestion. And life will test you on this. The more you practice setting and keeping your boundaries, the more natural it becomes. Something almost magical happens. You notice your guilt starting to fade. What once felt selfish now feels necessary. What once felt uncomfortable now feels like oxygen. And then comes the revelation. The people who truly matter in your life respect your limits. They don't just tolerate them, they honor them because they honor you. And the ones who resist, the ones who push, manipulate, or guilt trip, they were never really there for you. They were there for what they could take from you when you had no defenses. You stop feeling bad for protecting your peace because you finally understand it's not optional. It's the only way to live authentically. In the end, boundaries are love in action. They are the physical proof of self-worth. They say, I value myself enough to protect what matters to me. And when you live like this, something shifts in your relationships. You no longer attract people who thrive on your weakness. You begin to attract people who respect your strength. And perhaps most importantly, you stop betraying yourself in the name of pleasing others. Instead, you start building a life that not only looks good from the outside, but finally feels right on the inside. 4. The power of saying no to protect your energy. When was the last time you said no without giving an excuse? Without apologizing, without trying to soften it with a justification? For most people, that's rare, almost unthinkable. We live in a culture that worships busyness, where I'm so busy is treated like a badge of honor. We've been taught that being constantly available makes us valuable, but in reality, it just makes us drained. Here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to yourself. And over time, those stolen moments, that depleted energy, and that silent resentment add up. They become the invisible tax you pay for a life that doesn't feel like yours. Saying no isn't about rejecting people. It's about protecting the most precious resource you have, your energy. You can always make more money. You can rebuild a lost opportunity. You can even repair broken relationships. But once your energy is gone, it's gone. And without it, you can't create. You can't connect. You can't even enjoy the things you worked so hard for. Energy is your life force, and if you don't guard it fiercely, the world will drain it without hesitation. The problem is that most people associate saying no with being selfish, rude, or unkind. They imagine others labeling them as cold or uncaring. But here's the reality. People who truly respect you will respect your no, always. It's only the ones who are exploiting your lack of boundaries that will try to make you feel guilty for finally protecting yourself. And once you see that clearly, you'll never apologize for protecting your energy again. And that's the clearest sign the no was necessary. Think of your energy like a bank account. Every commitment, every conversation, every problem you take on, it's a withdrawal. If you never learn to say no, you'll eventually hit emotional bankruptcy. And the overdraft fees in this case are brutal. The symptoms? Burnout that no vacation can fix. Resentment toward people you once cared for. Loss of motivation that makes even small tasks feel impossible. In some cases, even physical illness, because the body keeps the score it whispers. First with headaches, fatigue, insomnia. But if you keep ignoring it, those whispers become shouts. Your body and mind are constantly warning you when you're giving too much. But if you ignore those signals, the cost will be far greater than you expect. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. Marcus Aurelius spoke of guarding the inner citadel, the fortress of your mind and soul. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every invitation is worth accepting. Every unnecessary yes is like opening the gate to an army that doesn't deserve to enter. Saying no is your way of closing that gate before an unnecessary siege drains your strength. Of course, here's the hard part. The first few times you say no, it will feel deeply uncomfortable. You've been conditioned your entire life to believe your worth is tied to how much you do for others. That conditioning runs deep through family, culture, workplaces, even friendships. Breaking it feels awkward at first, even guilty. But that awkwardness isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's proof you're finally reclaiming control over your life. Here are some practical ways to start. Before you agree to anything, pause. Literally pause. Ask yourself, does this align with my priorities right now? Will this energize me or drain me? If I say yes, what am I actually saying no to in return? Because every yes is a trade-off. These questions shift your focus from pleasing others to protecting yourself. And slowly you realize something powerful. The world doesn't end when you say no. The people who truly value you, they adjust. They respect it. And the ones who don't, they quietly fade away, making space for relationships that are healthier and more balanced. You'll see clearly who cared about you and who only cared about what you could give. When you start saying no with confidence, something changes inside you. You begin to trust yourself more. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. You stop believing you owe everyone access to your time and energy. And you start making decisions that leave you feeling lighter instead of weighed down. Ultimately, saying no is one of the purest forms of self-love. It says, I respect my time, my health, and my peace enough to protect them. And when you live this way, you realize you're not shutting people out. You're finally letting the right people in. You're not rejecting the world, you're refusing to reject yourself in the process. Letting go of people who don't value you. How many times have you stayed in someone's life long after they stopped treating you like you matter? How many times have you made excuses for their behavior, convinced yourself they'll change, or told yourself that maybe you're just expecting too much? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every moment you spend holding on to people who don't value you is a moment stolen from yourself, from your growth, your peace, your joy. Letting go isn't hard because we don't see the truth. Deep down, we usually know when someone isn't good for us. What makes it hard is the heart's attachment, not just to the person, but to the idea of them, to the memories, the chemistry, the potential of who they once were, or worse, who we imagined they could become. We cling not to reality, but to nostalgia. We hold on, praying they'll return to a version of themselves that no longer exists, all while ignoring the undeniable truth staring us in the face. The present version of them is nothing like it. This is the collision point of self-love and self-respect. You cannot truly claim to value yourself while continuously investing in someone who has shown, through consistent actions, that they do not. That contradiction is where people lose themselves professing self-worth but living in self-betrayal. Here's the truth. When someone values you, you never have to question it. You don't sit up at night decoding mixed signals. You don't shrink yourself just to fit into their comfort zone. You don't beg for attention, affection, or effort. Real value is consistent. It shows up day after day, not just when it's convenient. Anything less than that isn't love. It's tolerance. It's convenience. It's habit disguised as connection. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from the loss itself, but from our attachment to the illusion of control. We tell ourselves that if we just try harder, sacrifice more, change who we are, they'll finally see our worth. But worth isn't something you negotiate. It isn't something you beg for. It exists, whether they recognize it or not. So when you let go of people who don't value you, it's not about anger. It's not about revenge. It's about liberation. It's about reclaiming your time, your energy, your life. It's about creating space for relationships that nourish you rather than drain you. Because as long as your hands are gripping tightly to the wrong person, they're too full to reach for what's right. And yes, letting go leaves a void, silence where their chaos once lived. But in that silence, something beautiful happens. You start to hear yourself again, your real voice, your own dreams, your true needs. One of life's hardest lessons is this. Some people are only meant to be part of a chapter, not the whole book. Holding on after their exit point doesn't keep the story alive, it just keeps you stuck in a plot that's going nowhere. And every day you linger, there is another day you delay the story you actually deserve. Practically speaking, letting go is more than physical distance. It's emotional detachment. It's resisting the temptation to stalk their social media. It's refusing to replay conversations in your head or to rewrite the past into a fairy tale that never truly existed. It's choosing reality over nostalgia, truth over fantasy. You'll know you've truly let go when closure is no longer something you need from them, because you've already given it to yourself. When you stop waiting for an apology that may never come. When you can think of them without bitterness, but also without longing. That's the moment you've reclaimed your power. And here's what happens next. You get your time back. You get your mind back. You stop living in reaction to their moods and manipulations. You see opportunities, friendships, and experiences that were always there, but hidden behind the fog of their presence. You begin to rebuild a version of yourself that's stronger, freer, and whole. Letting go is not weakness. It is one of the most powerful acts of strength a human being can perform. Because when you walk away from what devalues you, you're walking toward the life and the self you were always meant to claim. It's saying clearly, I refuse to settle for being an option when I know I am a priority. That declaration may sting in the moment. Walking away always leaves an ache because endings carry grief, but it's a short-term pain that shields you from a lifetime of disrespect and disappointment. And that trade temporary hurt for permanent dignity is always worth it. The truth is, you can love someone deeply and still acknowledge that they're not good for you. Love doesn't automatically equal compatibility, health, or growth. You can be grateful for what the relationship once gave you, the lessons, the memories, even the moments of joy, while still choosing to leave. Self-love means knowing when to stop watering a dead plant, no matter how beautiful it once was, no matter how much time you've already invested, because clinging to something lifeless doesn't revive it. It only drains you. And here's the paradox. In letting go of them, you don't actually lose. You find yourself again. You recover the pieces of your soul you once abandoned trying to keep them happy. You rediscover your voice, your boundaries, your sense of peace. Letting go isn't about erasing someone else. It's about remembering you. And that is a trade worth making every single time. How to silence your inner critic. What if I told you that the loudest, most destructive voice you'll ever face doesn't belong to your enemies, your rivals, or the people who doubt you? It belongs to you. That relentless inner voice that whispers, you're not good enough, you're going to fail. Why even bother? That is your inner critic. And unless you learn how to master it, it will sabotage every step you try to take toward growth. Here's the strange part. Your inner critic often disguises itself as a friend. It says things like, be realistic, or don't embarrass yourself, or you're not ready yet. It sounds protective, almost logical. But underneath those phrases lies fear of risk, fear of rejection, fear of stepping into the unknown. That voice isn't guiding you toward wisdom. It's keeping you small. It convinces you to play it safe, to stay quiet, to live inside a box where nothing new can hurt you, yet where nothing new can grow you either. The Stoics saw through this illusion. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Your inner critic is not some external force. It isn't destiny or truth. It's simply part of your mind. And if you have power over your mind, you also have power over that critic. The problem is that most of us never question it. We accept its harsh words as fact instead of opinion. We forget that just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's valid. So one of the most liberating steps you can take is to learn to separate yourself from your thoughts. Imagine your thoughts as clouds drifting across the sky. You are not the clouds, you are the sky itself. The critic may appear like a storm, but you don't have to attach yourself to it. You can watch it come, watch it pass, and let it fade, without ever allowing it to define who you are. Silencing your inner critic doesn't mean pretending it doesn't exist. Ironically, ignoring it often makes it louder. The path forward isn't denial, it's confrontation. It's the moment you pause and ask, is this thought actually true? Do I have evidence? Or is this just fear pretending to be logic? Time and time again, you'll find that your critic's words collapse under the weight of scrutiny. Another practical method is reframing. Instead of using self-criticism, use self-instruction. Replace "I can't do this" with "I don't know how to do this yet, but I can learn." That single word yet transforms defeat into growth. It reminds you that you are a work in progress, and progress is not failure. The inner critic shuts doors. Self-instruction, on the other hand, opens them wide. It shifts your focus from limitation to possibility, from paralysis to progress. Instead of reinforcing fear, it reminds you of your potential. This is the difference between staying trapped in the same old cycle and finally moving toward growth. But here's something most people overlook. Your inner critic didn't appear out of nowhere. It often carries the echoes of someone else's voice. A parent's harsh words, a teacher's dismissive comment, a partner's criticism, or even the sting of a past failure that etched itself into your memory. When you recognize where the critic learned to speak, you stop mistaking it for truth. You see it for what it is, a learned pattern, not an absolute reality. This is where self-love becomes essential. Because when you genuinely value yourself, you refuse to accept being spoken to even by your own mind in ways you would never tolerate from another person. You wouldn't let a stranger call you worthless, yet many people do it to themselves, daily without even noticing. Self-love gives you the courage to fire the inner critic and hire an inner coach. Instead, an inner coach doesn't lie to you or flatter you with false praise. It still points out where you can improve, but it does so with compassion. It says, yes, this needs work, but you're capable. Yes, you've stumbled, but you're still moving forward. The critic tears down, the coach builds up. And while your critic may never fully disappear, it's part of being human. You can train it. You can reduce its volume until it's nothing more than faint background noise, no longer the dominant voice in your head. Practical tools can accelerate this shift. Journaling your thoughts helps reveal patterns and challenges the lies you've internalized. Practicing mindfulness teaches you to catch the critic in the very moment it speaks, creating space between the thought and your reaction. Surrounding yourself with people who speak encouragement and truth rewires your mental environment so that their voices gradually outweigh the critic's negativity. And perhaps the most powerful weapon of all, consistent action. Action is proof. Every step forward becomes evidence against your critic's false predictions. Because here's the truth. Your inner critic doesn't exist to predict your future. It exists to protect your comfort zone. But comfort zones, while safe, are also cages. They are where dreams quietly suffocate. Every time you silence that voice and move forward anyway, you reinforce a deeper truth. I am capable. I am worthy. I am allowed to take up space in this world. One day you'll look back at the milestones you've achieved, the job you pursued, the relationship you built, the risks you dared to take, and you'll realize something powerful. The critic was never right. And in that moment, the chains of self-doubt will finally shatter. Until then, keep showing up. Keep speaking to yourself with clarity and strength. And keep proving through action that you are far more than your fears. The role of self-care and building self-worth. When was the last time you truly took care of yourself, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally? When was the last time you treated yourself not as a machine to keep running, but as a person worth protecting, worth investing in, worth loving? For too many people today, self-care has been hijacked by marketing slogans. It's sold as bubble baths, spa days, or expensive indulgences, often reserved for when you're already burned out. But authentic self-care is far deeper than pampering. It is not an occasional treat. It is a daily declaration of your worth. Because here's the truth, you cannot have genuine self-worth without self-care. The two are inseparable. And every time you consistently neglect your needs, you send yourself a quiet but destructive message that you are not important. When you consistently neglect yourself, you send a subtle but destructive message. I'm not a priority. Over time, that message seeps into your beliefs and quietly rewrites how you see yourself. You begin to accept less from others because you've already accepted less from yourself. And here's the hard truth. The world often mirrors back to you the standard you set for yourself, but the opposite is also true. When you consistently care for yourself, when you nourish your body with real food, move it with intention, rest it fully, feed your mind with knowledge, and protect your emotions, you reinforce a very different belief. I matter. My well-being matters. My life matters. That belief becomes the anchor of your self-worth. The Stoics understood this principle even without the modern word self-care. Seneca once wrote, "No man has the power to have everything he wants, but he has the power not to want what he has not, and cheerfully to employ what comes to him." In other words, true self-care isn't about indulgence or excess. It's not chasing after every desire. It's about mastering the art of wisely using what you already have to strengthen your body, sharpen your mind, and steady your emotions. And here's the part many people miss. Real self-care isn't glamorous. It's not about curated Instagram routines or luxurious spa trips. Sometimes it means turning off your phone at 10 p.m. and going to bed instead of mindlessly scrolling until 2 a.m. Sometimes it means cooking a simple, nourishing meal instead of grabbing fast food for convenience. Sometimes it means choosing a quiet evening of reflection instead of another draining social event. And sometimes it means having an uncomfortable but necessary conversation to protect your mental space. Self-care builds something deeper than momentary comfort. It builds trust with yourself. Every time you make a choice that favors your long-term well-being over short-term pleasure, you prove to yourself that you can be relied on. And self-trust is the deepest foundation of self-worth. You can't feel good about yourself if deep down you know you constantly betray your own needs. Think of self-care like an investment account. Every healthy meal, every workout, every night of restful sleep, every moment of journaling or meditation, these are deposits. And just like with money, those deposits accumulate, compounding into resilience, confidence, and a quiet but unshakable sense of self-respect. But neglect acts like withdrawal. Skip too many deposits, and you'll pay the price not in dollars, but in your energy, your clarity, and your sense of identity. And here's something people often overlook. Self-care isn't only about what you do. It's equally about what you stop doing. Stop letting toxic relationships drain you. Stop overloading your schedule until you can't breathe. Stop feeding your mind with constant negativity from news cycles, gossip, or endless doom scrolling. This is where self-care overlaps with boundaries. You cannot truly nurture yourself if you allow every demand and distraction to invade your inner space. And the paradox is this: the more you care for yourself, the more you actually have to give to others. Neglecting yourself doesn't make you noble. It makes you unreliable, resentful, and exhausted. Real strength comes from knowing when to rest, when to recharge, and when to say no. By protecting your energy, you show up as a stronger friend, a wiser partner, a more patient parent, and a more effective leader. Practical self-care doesn't require wealth or luxury. It requires consistency. 10 minutes of daily meditation is more powerful than a once-a-month escape. Cooking one simple, balanced meal matters more than endlessly promising yourself you'll start next Monday. A 20-minute walk in nature can lift your spirit more than hours of scrolling through curated lives online. These small, daily acts of self-respect add up in ways grand gestures never will. So ask yourself honestly, if someone could see every choice you make about your health, your energy, and your peace of mind, would they be able to tell that you love yourself? If the answer is no, then you found the place to begin. Self-care is not a reward you earn after proving yourself. It is the foundation that allows you to keep going, to keep growing, and to keep becoming the kind of person you admire. The moment you decide your body is worth nourishing, your mind is worth protecting, and your heart is worth guarding, you rise into a new level of self-worth. And once you've experienced that, you will never again accept a life where you abandon yourself just to please others. Learning to enjoy your own company was the last time you were alone and actually enjoyed it? Not distracted by your phone, not numbing the silence with background noise, not anxiously waiting to fill the space with someone else's presence, but truly alone, calm, and comfortable in your own skin. For many people today, solitude feels like punishment. They treat it as something to escape, something to fill as quickly as possible. But the truth is, learning to enjoy your own company is one of the greatest forms of freedom you can ever master. When you rely on external validation, you hand over the keys to your happiness. You essentially say to the world, "You get to decide how I feel about myself." That's a dangerous bargain, because most people are too distracted with their own struggles to truly see you clearly. They see fragments. They see what's convenient for them. Sometimes they even project their own insecurities and failures onto you. And yet, many of us still live like this every single day, measuring our worth by the reactions of people who are barely paying attention at the first step in. Breaking free from this cycle is recognizing where external validation controls your choices. Maybe it's in the way you dress, not because it makes you feel confident, but because you're chasing compliments. Maybe it's the career path you chose, not out of passion, but because it sounded impressive at family gatherings. Maybe it's how you filter your words, hiding your real opinions because you're afraid of disapproval. These are the subtle prisons we build for ourselves. The way out is through self-generated validation. That means measuring your worth by your own standards, not the applause of the crowd, by the promises you keep to yourself, the values you live, by the skills you've developed through effort and persistence. It's the difference between saying, "I feel good because they like me," and "I feel good because I lived with integrity today." A powerful exercise is detaching your actions from their reception. If you create something in artwork, a project at work, even a personal goal, ask yourself, would I still be proud of this if no one ever saw it? If the answer is yes, you're on the right track. You're living for you, not for applause. The emotional benefit of this shift is stability. When your confidence comes from within, it doesn't rise and fall with likes, comments, or fleeting praise. You can receive criticism without collapsing, and you can receive praise without becoming addicted to it. You remain calm in both success and failure because neither defines you. Of course, this doesn't mean ignoring others completely. Feedback can be valuable. We learn and grow from outside perspectives. But there's a world of difference between considering someone's opinion and depending on it for your sense of worth. True self-love allows you to weigh feedback against your principles rather than swallowing it whole out of fear. And when you release the need for constant reassurance, your relationships transform. You stop suffocating others with the silent demand to hold up your self-esteem. People can enjoy your company without feeling responsible for patching your insecurities. And you, in turn, can show up more authentic, more present, more real, because you're no longer performing for approval. Here's the real shift. You begin to trust your own voice more than the noise around you. That doesn't mean you'll never care what people think. After all, we're human, and connection matters. But it does mean your worth won't rise and fall like a stock price based on other people's moods. External validation will always be unstable because people are unstable. Their attention wanders, their preferences shift, their judgments change. If you build your identity on that, you'll spend your life endlessly chasing something you can never hold. But when you build it on your own standards, your own effort, your own growth, it becomes unshakable. So ask yourself, if no one ever clapped for me again, would I still chase my dreams? Would I still live by my values? Would I still fight for my goals? If the answer is no, then it's time to reframe your motivation. Because the only applause that truly matters is the one you give yourself. When you know you've lived in full alignment with the person you want to be, how to forgive yourself and move forward. How many nights have you stayed awake, replaying your mistakes like a broken record? How many times have you whispered, "If only I could go back and do it differently"? We all carry moments we wish we could erase words. Spoken in anger, opportunities we let slip, choices made out of fear instead of courage. And yet, no matter how much we wish it, the past does not bend to regret. It is carved in stone. What we can change is how we relate to it. Most people run from the step of forgiveness because it hurts. But pain is the doorway to growth. When you take full responsibility, you strip away the illusions. You stop hiding from yourself. That honesty is brutal, but it's liberating. Because once the truth is faced, the next step, self-compassion, becomes not just possible, but necessary. And make no mistake, self-compassion is not some fluffy feel-good trend. It is a survival skill. Think about it. If you're constantly tearing yourself down, how can you expect to rise? You would never tell a friend, "You're worthless." You'll never get it right every single day and expect them to thrive. Yet that's what many of us do internally, sometimes without even realizing it. That inner hostility corrodes confidence. It drains energy. It locks us in place. Self-compassion, by contrast, is speaking to yourself the way you would to someone you love, with honesty, yes, but also with encouragement, understanding, and a reminder that mistakes are proof of trying, not proof of failure. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius warned that the people we encounter each day will often be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, or ignorant, but he wasn't only describing others. That observation applies inward too. We ourselves act out of ignorance, weakness, or habit. And if we can extend tolerance to strangers, why do we so often refuse to extend the same to our own hearts? True forgiveness also requires action. If you've hurt someone, make amends, not to erase guilt, but to honor their experience and restore integrity. If the harm cannot be undone, then let the lesson guide your future choices. Forgiveness is not passive. It is active. It transforms regret into responsibility. Perhaps the most difficult part is shedding the identity your mistake branded on you. People cling to guilt because it becomes familiar. I'm the one who failed. I'm the one who wasted years. I'm the one who ruined that relationship. But you are not a single event. You are not frozen in one chapter. You are a story still being written. And the pen is in your hand. When you finally release the weight of self-condemnation, something profound happens. You stop being chained to constant repair. Instead, you begin to build. You take risks again because you know that even failure doesn't define you. You step into the present moment fully alive instead of dragging the corpse of yesterday. Behind you, self-forgiveness is not pretending the past never happened. It's refusing to let it control your future. Ask yourself, if a dear friend made the same mistake you did, and they were sincerely trying to grow, would you tell them to live in shame forever? Or would you urge them to stand up, learn the lesson, and walk forward with dignity? That is exactly the grace you owe yourself. The moment you forgive yourself, you reclaim your power. You are no longer defined by what you did. You are defined by what you choose to do next. That is the truest form of freedom, building confidence through consistent action. What if confidence isn't something you're born with or something that magically arrives one day, but something you build brick by brick through steady, often, Unglamorous action? The truth is, the confident people you admire aren't superheroes. They are not fearless. They are simply people who have stacked enough proof, day after day, that they can trust themselves to show up and do the work. Most people get this backwards. They wait to feel confident before taking action. They tell themselves, once I'm ready, I'll start. But that's not how it works. You don't act because you feel confident. You feel confident because you acted. Every small promise you keep to yourself is a brick in the foundation of self-belief. Every time you follow through, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Skip commitments, procrastinate, or hide. You cast a vote for doubt. But step forward, even clumsily, even in discomfort. That's a vote for confidence. And over time, the majority wins. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said that if you wish to improve, you must be willing to be thought foolish by others. Why? Because growth requires action, and action often invites judgment. Confidence is not about looking perfect. It's about caring more about the act than about the audience. Consistency is the secret ingredient. Anyone can take action once, but confidence is born when you repeat it on the days when you're tired, on the days when the world feels heavy, on the days when you'd rather hide. If you can keep your word to yourself in the storm, you'll never doubt yourself in the sunshine. And let's be clear, confidence doesn't mean succeeding at everything. In fact, your greatest growth will come from failing and proving you can. Survive it. Every time you rise after a setback, you reinforce the belief that you are resilient, unbreakable, capable. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Apply this to failure, and suddenly the picture changes. Failure isn't the verdict, it's the training ground. The event itself doesn't define you. What matters is the story you tell yourself about it. If you frame failure as proof that you're unworthy, you shrink. But if you frame it as a lesson, as preparation, as evidence that you dared to step into the arena, then failure becomes fuel. And from that perspective, your confidence becomes unshakable. Practical steps make this real. Don't start by trying to conquer the biggest mountain. Begin with the micro promises, the small actions that teach your brain you can be trusted. Wake up when you said you would. Send that email you've been avoiding. Do 20 minutes at the gym instead of waiting for the perfect routine. These small wins matter more than people realize, because reliability is the foundation of confidence. And reliability is built one kept promise at a time. Just as important, keep your focus inward. External applause, likes, compliments, attention are unstable foundations. They rise and fall with trends, moods, and other people's whims. True confidence is internal. It's the quiet knowledge, I said I would, and I did, even if no one noticed, even if no one clapped. And here's the irony: when you stop chasing validation, others notice anyway. People are drawn to those who move with certainty, who don't need permission to exist. But by the time that recognition comes, you won't be chasing it anymore. You'll already have your own dot. So ask yourself right now, what's one thing you've been postponing because you don't feel ready? What if you stopped waiting for confidence and did it anyway? Because confidence isn't something you find, It's something you become. With every small act, you train the muscle. And just like lifting weights, the more reps you put in, the stronger you get. Confidence isn't a gift from the world. It's not luck. It's not reserved for the chosen few. It's a skill you practice until it becomes part of who you are. Every brick you lay through consistent action builds a fortress that no criticism, no failure, no rejection can tear down. Practicing gratitude for who you are. When was the last time you paused? Not to wish for what you don't yet have, but to honor what you already are? We live in a culture designed to feed dissatisfaction. Social media scrolls remind you of the car you don't drive, the body you don't have, the life you're not living. Advertisements whisper that you're incomplete until you buy something more. Even casual conversations can spiral into comparisons that leave you feeling behind. The world trains us to obsess over the gap. But here's the paradox. Growth is important, yes, but fulfillment only comes when you can also feel grateful for yourself as you are right now. Gratitude for who you are doesn't mean pretending you're flawless. It means recognizing your worth without conditions. It means remembering the storms you survived, the battles you fought, and the values you kept intact when abandoning them would have been easier. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Applied inwardly, this truth is profound. The poorest version of you is the one who cannot see your own value unless it's validated by someone else. The richest version is the one who can stand in front of the mirror and say, "I am enough." Not because you've achieved every dream, but because you've already proven your strength by being here. Gratitude for yourself changes everything. Without it, life feels like a constant chase, always comparing, always craving, always believing you're behind. With it, life becomes a place of abundance, not because you suddenly have it all, but because you realize you already carry what you need to begin. From that foundation, growth becomes a conscious choice instead of a desperate scramble to fill a void. Practical practice matters. Each morning, write down 3 things you appreciate about yourself. Not just talents or appearances, but qualities of character. Maybe it's your resilience when life knocked you down. Maybe it's your loyalty to those you love. Maybe it's the fact that you've kept moving, even when the weight of the world tried to pin you to the floor. These are not vain affirmations, they are anchors. They quiet the voice that whispers, "I'm not enough," and strengthen the one that affirms, "I matter." Gratitude also teaches perspective. Too often, we define ourselves by our worst mistakes, replaying them until they become our identity. But you are not one bad decision any more than a tree is defined by a single broken branch. Gratitude shifts focus from scars to growth. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to see what already exists instead of obsessing over what is absent. This isn't complacency, it's clarity. You can aim higher without despising who you are now. In fact, true self-improvement only works when it's built on self-respect, not self-loathing. And here's the final gift. When you're grateful for yourself, outside criticism loses its sting. Praise doesn't inflate you, and insults don't break you. You know your strengths, you own your weaknesses, and you carry both without shame. That is emotional resilience. Gratitude rewires your focus. Instead of seeing 10 things wrong with yourself, you begin to see the 100 things that are already right. And the more you practice gratitude, the more natural it becomes. Soon you'll find yourself pausing in quiet moments while walking, sipping coffee, or even just breathing and thinking, I'm proud who I'm becoming. That's when you know the shift is real. That's when gratitude has transformed from an exercise into a way of being. So today, instead of measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel, measure yourself against the person you were yesterday. Look at your growth, however small. Appreciate your resilience, even if no one else notices. Celebrate the victories that never made it to social media, the ones no one clapped for, but still mattered deeply to you. Because here's the truth. You will never love yourself if you keep postponing that love until you become better. Gratitude teaches you to love yourself now in progress, in motion, in imperfection. And that love, imperfect as it may be, becomes the unshakable foundation for every success you'll ever build. At the end of the day, it all comes down to one undeniable reality. The world will treat you the way you treat yourself. If you neglect your needs, so will they. If you consistently cross your own boundaries, others will too. But if you set high standards, protect your energy, and unapologetically value yourself, you train the world to recognize how you deserve to be treated. Loving yourself more than anyone else doesn't mean abandoning love for others. It means you finally love from a place of strength, not desperation. It means you no longer chase approval, beg for attention, or cling to relationships that deplete you. Instead, your happiness rests on a foundation no one can shake because it's built from within. The Stoics knew this long before the term self-love became popular. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins with disciplined, unwavering self-love, the kind that's not dependent on circumstances, the kind rooted in gratitude for who you already are. That is the core of freedom. So here's my challenge to you. Starting today, stop waiting for permission to love yourself. Stop putting it off until you lose the weight, land the promotion, or find the perfect partner. Love yourself now in the middle of the chaos, with the flaws, with the scars. Because when you do, every goal you pursue and every relationship you nurture will come from abundance, not emptiness. And remember this, the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other connection in your life. Treat yourself like someone you are proud to know. Protect yourself like someone you care for deeply. Invest in yourself like someone you believe in wholeheartedly. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's living in truth. Now, it's your turn to step into it, to practice it daily, to embody the freedom and power that comes when you finally decide to love yourself more than anyone else.